Hey there, welcome to LSAT Demon Daily Digest. I'm Ben Olson, that's Nathan Fox. Together we're the founders of LSATdemon.com and our weekly podcast, Thinking LSAT. Here's what we talked about this week.
We have an email here from Adrian.
Good morning. I wanted to quickly say the LSAT Demon is amazing. I love the layout of the website. I'm enjoying all of the information I've learned from the YouTube videos and test thus far. I do have one question. I'm a non-traditional URM student who resides in Georgia. I'm looking to attend Syracuse University School of Law, University of Dayton School of Law, because they offer a hybrid program. I'm also considering Georgia State University because they have a part-time program. My question is, how do I get more information about scholarships that Syracuse or Dayton offer because they are not on your site? Thanks to your advice about deadlines, I'm pushing back when I will apply to law school. I think that was 2 sentences. I want to make sure I'm the best candidate to receive the best scholarship possible. Awesome. I also wanted to know if you had any advice for expanding my knowledge in a specific area of law if the school doesn't offer a concentration. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your knowledge and time. Let's deal with the scholarship estimator first. So those two schools.
I went to lsatdemon.com/scholarships. I searched for Syracuse. Syracuse is in the estimator. The 509 report for Syracuse has all of their scholarship information. They don't have a part-time program. If that did they say that was interesting to them? Oh, a hybrid program. Considering Georgia State because they have a part-time program. Okay, Syracuse 509 is here on the estimator. Dayton, University of Dayton, 126. It's here on the scholarship estimator.
Georgia State University is also here.
It has numbers for their full-time program and their part-time program for both LSAT GPA ranges and scholarship ranges. I mean, looking at Dayton right now, they give more half to full. Wait, are you kidding me? Okay, so 83% of that school gets half to full tuition.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Okay, your price is fake, like everyone else's.
You know what? There might be an additional error here. Yeah, look at these errors, Ben.
Okay.
There are 277 people in the school, but 306 of them get grants. So 110% of the school gets grants.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's give
in the
money
part-time
to people
program. It's the same thing. Yeah, there are 229 people in the school, but there's 254 people receiving a grant from the school. Hey, maybe there's just a whole bunch of graft going on. Maybe I mean, I don't know.
And they just report it in the
Dayton,
509
Ohio.
and no one says anything.
Anybody in Dayton, Ohio want to help us investigate this? Because this school, according to their American Bar Association Consumer Protection Standard 509 information report, they're giving grants to more people than are actually at their school.
And no system flagged this whatsoever.
Nope. Oh, sorry. It was total. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, full-time and part-time, they're both have more people getting grants than are. Yeah. If you've got connections at the ABA, we would love to know why these 509 reports are not vetted at all. It's like, the American Bar Association is like, well, you have to produce this data, but we don't care whether it's valid.
Yeah. Well, look at this. They don't have any cost. The tuition for resident part-time students is 0, even though they have supposedly 48 part-time students, and it does say per credit.
Yeah, they're reporting it per credit instead of per annual.
My bad. I just jumping on the bandwagon. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's annoying too, because then how many credits do you have?
Yeah.
Is it 14 or 15 or 16 credits per semester? I mean, that totally hides the actual information. They should get rid of that on the file. They shouldn't even let schools report by per credit. It should be per annual. What's your damn tuition?
It also makes the fees confusing because look, it says per credit, but then it says annual fees. And it's like, okay, what is that?
Annual fees per credit? Well, it can't be both. Yeah. We're just finding that these reports, this is meant to be a consumer protection measure explicitly. when they created, Section 509 or whatever, the reason why they did this was to protect consumers. But if they're not going to give a shit whether the data is accurate, then I doubt what consumer protection benefit is actually accruing. Anyway, back to Adrienne. That's all. It's all on the website, lsatdemon.com/scholarships, and you can find all that information. How do you want to answer that second question? Advice about expanding my knowledge in a specific area of the law if the school doesn't offer a concentration?
I guess I wouldn't worry about that. Lawyers are generalists when they come out of law school, and then you gain your experience and your specific knowledge from your job.
The bar exam is a generalist test. So law schools, they have, I would think that they have a duty to teach the bar.
Yeah.
They, I think, sometimes differ on that, but lawyers are generalists. These specific programs are almost all marketing bullshit. So if they don't offer a concentration, that's fine. That the concentration that some other school is offering is essentially fake anyway.
By the way,
marketing. Yeah, go.
Random tip, or thought or comment. Jen is calling all the schools that don't have a fee because we want to make sure that they actually don't have a fee. And Ohio said, we don't have a fee, but we're adding a fee. It's $300. And it's going to cover bar prep.
$300?
Yeah.
For bar prep?
Yeah. It's interesting though. It's a mandatory,
a mandatory $300 fee for bar prep.
Yeah. They want to increase their bar passage rate, I guess. And that's how they're going to do it.
But that's separate from the 3 years of school that you're studying tuition.
We're not going to throw that in. We're going to.
You can't just have a class called bar prep. I mean, the entire third year of law school should go. And it should just be bar prep.
Yeah.
But I don't know. These schools are businesses. They can't do that because they know that people are going to fail the bar anyway. That's why they don't do it. They try to just push the responsibility for bar passage off on Barbary.
Yeah. So if someone gets upset, it's like, well, hey, we did our job. We did the
pretty
legal
clear that
education.
That's why they do it. Yeah. I have with me today a guest. I have Chris Murphy. Chris, you wrote us a real nice email. You're a satisfied Demon student. I'll just let you tell your story.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks, Nathan, for inviting me onto the podcast. I've been a longtime Demon user, but my LSAT success journey was not without its ups and downs and significant challenges. And I think it was the challenges in my LSAT study and official scores that really pushed me to get closer to my ultimate potential as a student. So for anyone who's had bad LSAT official scores, I'm definitely one of you. And I used that bad LSAT score to rethink how I was engaging with the Demon and learning the materials that you and Ben put out there. So in September, I ended up with a 173 LSAT, which was right around where I was PTing on my best PTs. But a couple tests before that, I cratered all the way back down to my diagnostic on an LSAT in March, where I got a 159. And that served as a real wake-up call for me and forced me to be honest with myself about the way I was engaging the material and the way I was thinking about taking the test.
I have your total history here. You told us that you had a 158 diagnostic. On your first official test, you had a 165. Did you think about quitting there?
I had a moment, as I think a lot of students do when they get into that score range and they start seeing that green on the scholarship estimator on your website, which I probably open daily to see where I'm at. But
that's lsatdemon.com/scholarships, by the way, if you'd like to look at what different LSAT scores might be able to get you scholarship-wise. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. And I carry with me a little bit of a suboptimal GPA. I've got a 3.6. And so what the estimator showed me is to not pay for law school and to go to the schools that I thought I was capable of going to, I needed a way better LSAT score. So I jumped back into my study program. But I think in a lot of ways that 165 and my higher diagnostic score was like fool's gold to me. So it allowed me to think that this was going to be a quick process that I could brute force the LSAT and really would get results without putting in a lot of fundamental change in the way I was thinking about things. And so I noticed after I got a 159 on my subsequent test.
That was an official attempt number 2, a 159, down from a 165. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
And that was literally back to square one. And I think a lot of times when life throws us challenges that put us back to where we started, it's a time to regroup and reassess. And I found in my study habits, I was doing so many of the things that you and Ben and the other instructors I worked with at the D-Men would constantly harp on. But I think because of issues of ego and kind of that false, really quick progress I had at the beginning with the D-Men, none of that sank in. And I didn't want to admit I was doing those things. And it took a real tough experience for me to actually begin studying the way I should.
You have a list here. I keep glancing over at your email. You have a list of bullet points, examples of my bad habits. First one, speed reading and skimming questions.
Yeah. So I can read really quickly. And in my history, undergrad and my graduate school, that was like the best skill I had. And I relied on it constantly. That in the LSAT was the worst habit by far that I had. There were so many times when I would go back to look at a section that I couldn't believe I dropped points on and realized I didn't read the last sentence, or there's a critical word or a rule that I just didn't get to, or I read wrong. And so, I learned that if I spend 2 minutes on a question on LR or something, it's a good 2 minutes if 1.5 minutes of that are spent just understanding the arguments and what it's trying to get across in the passage before looking at answers at all. And if I could really chew on every single word in that LR passage, I understood the answers almost before I went into it.
Oh, yeah. You'll find the trick. I mean, there's something wrong with the argument, right? There's like, oh, I see. I thought this made perfect sense, but nah, now I see that your evidence is just really not enough. And it's because of this 1 or 2 words very frequently. And then you're answering the question before you even read the question. Okay, so that's logical reasoning, probably mostly maybe reading comprehension as well, where your speed reading and your skimming was not working for you. Then your next bullet point, you said that you were diagramming logic games before reading the entire stimulus. And I want to really make sure we hammer this for the listeners. You should not be diagramming the first rule, then diagramming the second rule, because you don't even know what the other rules are. Like, one of the later rules might change the game in such a way that you're like, oh, I don't even need to bother doing that because I can just do this other thing. Is that kind of your experience?
Absolutely. And this was a horrible habit I picked up when I was first exploring LSAT prep materials. I bought a top-rated book on Amazon, got it delivered in 2 days, and started going through their method for logic games, which was as soon as you read a rule, write it down.
Yeah.
And what I found is in writing down the rule, I thought I had it. That was it. I wrote down the rule. I crossed out a K, or F can't be with G, put an X on it. That rule doesn't tell me anything. All the rules are in their interpretation and their application.
Yeah, you're not solving the system. You're just like, well, yeah, that's the rule.
Yeah, and I found that I was just writing down the information that was already in the passage. I don't need to write that down. The rule set tells me right there the same thing I'm writing down, and nothing about that helps me. And so there were times when I would spend 30 seconds thinking my game was diagrammed, I had my rule set, and then the rest of the game would take me 12 or 15 minutes. And on that LSAT where I scored 159 on my official, there was one game I distinctly remember that I spent, I think, 14 minutes on this game, which some games might not be a horrible thing, but I realized that I had misread a conditional rule, didn't ever think about the second condition, and every diagram that I worked on for like 12, 13 minutes was incorrect. So I completely tanked the rest of that section. I didn't rebound, I couldn't salvage, and I realized it was because of fundamental misunderstanding of how I was approaching LG.
Awesome. Okay, the next thing you say, this applied to all sections. You said that you were focusing on the timer.
Yeah. And I think one of the things I noticed about myself is that whether it was skimming, speed reading, I was so focused on getting everything done. And there were times when I would finish sections with 7 or 8, 9 minutes left on the section, which to me eventually became a sign that I did something horribly wrong on the section. And I think trying to focus on the timer, thinking about the time leads you to a dark place in your LSAT. And that's exactly where I was at that 159. And I'll compare it to when I took the test in September and I got my, as of yet, highest score of 173. I was so focused on the exam and the questions that when I finished my 4th section, I didn't actually know I was done. I called the proctor and got into a little bit of a confused argument with the proctor because I thought there were more sections. I had no idea about the meta of the test. I was just going through, reading questions and answering. And I was so lost in the moment of understanding arguments and answering those that I had no idea that there weren't more sections ahead.
That's a clear sign that you're doing it right. You know, people worry about endurance. People panic and think like, well, I have to practice doing full tests because, you know, otherwise I'm going to run out of energy at the end of the test. And I'm like, well, maybe, but probably not, because if you get good at it, I mean, 4 sections, even with accommodations, we're still only talking about a few hours, and you're sitting down in a probably climate controlled environment. You're not like outside breaking rocks, you know, and it's like, well, if you're tired, if it's too much for you, then I have a feeling that it's just because you haven't gotten good enough at the individual questions. I mean, if you get better at the individual questions, then like Chris says, it's just going to fly by.
I couldn't agree more. And I realized what made sections taxing, what made tests taxing, were the baggage I was carrying in my own head. I was going through the test, thinking about what score I might get at the end. I was thinking about how many questions I was unsure of, and flagging those to go back later. I was so concerned with the weight of my entire law school journey that reading each word, understanding each sentence was secondary. And that's what gets you so tired, is that constant high level stress and anxiety about the whole entire process that causes you to pick up all those horrible habits.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to do the whole workout right now, right? If you're like, oh my God, I can't believe how hard this is. Am I going to make it to the end of this class, or am I going to make it to the end of this workout? It's like, well, all you're doing is making yourself more tired by thinking about that. Why don't you just do the one thing that you're doing right now? Why don't you just stay in the moment? Like, you don't have to do those other exercises. Not right now. You're only doing this one. So settle down and just kind of take it one question at a time. That's amazing that you just forgot. Like you're like, it's you know, what? The test is done, you know, because meanwhile, other students are like so intensely focused, not only on the timer on their one section, but they also get super focused on things like, well, that section of logic games didn't go well for me. So I'm really hoping that there's going to be another section of logic games, because I'm really hoping that that previous section was the experimental section. And it's like, I mean, sure, but that doesn't help you. You're not solving, you're just not doing the assignment that's right there on the page in front of you. If you would forget all that and just do the assignment, you'd probably be in a lot better shape. You said you were obsessing over highlighting and control Fing during reading comprehension. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think everybody that's involved in any type of LSAT prep community, you hear pretty early on that you got to control F during RC. You see a word in the question, you control F, see if you can find it in the passage, and that's your recipe for success. And the people writing the LSAT are smarter than that. They'll use synonyms or phrases or sentences that get across the same meaning that you could never control F for. And as I was going through passages, you know, I was finding what I thought were key points, highlighting those, finding words that I thought might come up later, highlighting those. And it completely distracted me from understanding what the passage was saying, figuring out each paragraph, what they're arguing, figuring out the author POV and what they might think about this passage or a complementary passage. I wasn't engaging with it the way that I should, because I was so caught up in the meta test taking strategies and tips that sometimes I would completely miss the argument.
Yeah, Control F for topics. Control F to try to answer questions, I think, is a terrible plan. I did just recently realize that Control F for periods. Our teacher Matthew is the one who reminded me of this, or who told me this in the first place. But if you do Control F for period, just Control F period, enter. It will highlight all the periods in the passage. And as you're reading the passage, that might help you to like stop, you know? Again, I don't do that. And I don't know a lot of people who do that. But if you're one of those students who races through the passage and then you, at the end of the passage, you don't have any understanding, a really good tip might be, hey, stop at every period and think about what you just read. The Control F thing might help you do that a little bit.
Yeah. And I want to stress to, listeners who were like me, I listen to this podcast every day and the weekly one every week, that I heard all these things before going into these LSATs. I'd heard Ben and Nathan talk about it. I'd subscribed to Live and heard instructors talk about it. I wasn't honest in my appraisal of myself and what I was doing while I was taking the test. And I think what's critical while you're studying the LSAT and you're engaging these materials, you're also engaging with yourself and viewing yourself as an object as well. One of my favorite things to think about is the way our brains process information and create schemas in our head. And our brain is so good at deceiving ourselves, at providing excuses for ourselves about why things happened. So I remember thinking after taking tests and sections of, oh, that must have been a fairly difficult section compared to other ones, or this test was test number 25 and that's different from the test number 75 through 90, and that's why it was tough for me to do this. And I created so many of these emotional fallback spaces in my head that I never actually critically reflected on myself and the ways that I was taking the test and setting myself up for failure. And so I would just encourage other students to, after you take a test, you read the questions, you learn from the explanations in the Demon. You also think about what was your mental state as you were taking it? What things did you do while you took it that led you to succeed or fail?
Fantastic. Your fifth bullet point here is you were picking the first answer that seemed good enough. That'll save time. That's how you finished 10 minutes early on the section.
It absolutely was. And the bad part is sometimes you'll do that and you'll be right. You'll get rewarded.
Yeah.
And what that allows you to do is build that horrible habit in yourself. And it also allows you to make a really quick mental excuse of, oh, I just missed that response number E, and that won't happen again. I'll go through and I'll read it, without realizing that what led you to that action of filling out the incorrect bubble was just jumping to the first thing that looked like it slightly fit. And I started to use analogies in my head when I was taking the test, that when you are reading LR, particularly RC, that the correct answers will fit so well. It's like the experience of placing a puzzle piece into the spot it's missing on a puzzle.
You feel the click.
Times you do. You feel the click, it slides in. And there's sometimes when I'm doing puzzles that I'll have one that really looks like it should fit. And it looks like the holes of the pegs match up, and I'll sit there and I'll be mashing it in. And sometimes I even leave them. And then I'll find the correct piece later and I'm like, oh my God. That one fit in. And that's exactly how answers should feel on LR. Every part of it should make perfect sense when it goes in, and it instantly makes every single other answer look so incredibly wrong that it's
love that
you thought about it.
Yeah, on the hardest LSAT questions, you're sometimes going to have to get to that click first by process of elimination, right? So you read A, nah, read B, nah, same thing with C, same thing with D, same thing with E. Oh shit, I eliminated all 5 answers. None of these fit. Okay, well, but one of them in the minds of the test makers is a perfectly correct answer. I mean, they like one of those answers, according to them, is legally defensible. Otherwise, they never would have put it on the LSAT. So what you have to do then is like, okay, go back through the answers one more time, conclusively eliminate the ones where you're just like, there is no way in hell they meant that to be correct. Like that has to be wrong. Get rid of that one. And frequently you'll eliminate 4 conclusively, come back to one answer where the first time you read it, you were like, nah. And it's okay if you read it fast the first time. I mean, I think you should read answer choices fast the first time because 80% of them are wrong. But you read that one again and you go, okay, since I've eliminated these other 4 answers, and this one, maybe I didn't really take the time to think about it. But once you start thinking it through, you should be able to see how, oh shit, actually, yeah, if you interpret, maybe you were interpreting one phrase one way, but there's actually another way that phrase could be interpreted. And as soon as you see that, you go, oh, wait a second. If they meant this, and they must have, because none of those other answers could even possibly be right. They must have meant this. And then when you say, oh shit, they meant that. Oh, now it clicks. It fits perfectly in that spot.
Yeah. And as I'm talking about checking in with myself as I'm taking a test, when I was taking a test and I got to an LR and I eliminated all the answer choices, that was a sign to me that I'm reading this and approaching the test in the right way. I have a critical mindset. It's tough for me to let an answer in. I'm doing the right thing. I realized I was in trouble when I would be going through answers and I would have 2 or 3 maybes I'm thinking about.
Ugh.
And that was a sign to me that I didn't understand the passage and I had to start over and go back to square one and re-engage the argument because there was something critical that I missed.
Yeah, even 2 is already bad. Like students pat themselves on the back. Oh, I narrowed it down to 2. Well, yeah, but one of those is wrong. So for whatever reason, you're considering at least one wrong answer. They might both be wrong, by the way. So I would never, ever get to 3. I've seen students sometimes they're like, well, I can't conclusively eliminate that answer, so I'll leave it open. Then they read another answer. Oh, I can't conclusively eliminate that one either, so I'll leave it open. And now they're reading a third answer? One of those 2 is wrong. Like, which one is it? You figure it out. You have to solve this. And the second you have what you think are 2 good answers, you know that one of them has to die. So I wouldn't even be reading a third answer if I had 2 contenders. Instead, I would be like, oh shit, I gotta sort this out because I'm already in trouble if I have 2 contenders. It's not good, it's bad to have 2 contenders. And I'm certainly not going to be looking for a 3rd or 4th or 5th contender, God forbid, before I do the actual work of processing those other answers. And I can keep one of them, but I can't keep both of them. I have to get rid of one of those answers. All right. So I don't know if we went through your whole study history. From that 159, you bounced back to a 169. You said that you built yourself back up using 3 mantras. You said, slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Yeah. And that speaks to the need for me taking the test to remove myself from any meta consideration I'm thinking about with the time, with having to find the answer. And what I realized is when I went into a question desperately thinking, I've got to find the answer to this question, I've got to solve the question, it caused me to rush and misunderstand everything. Slow and smooth on the LSAT for me meant reading a word, understanding a sentence, and figuring out what that sentence meant in the context of the argument on the passage. And when I did that, I was able to answer things so much faster than when I was so focused on moving quickly and answering the question from the get-go.
Second thing you said was read and understand every single word.
Yeah, and that was key because you have to understand as a candidate that LSAC chooses every single word purposefully in the passage to put it in there and in the answers as well. And there were times when I would fall in love with words on answers. There would be half of an answer that would look fantastic, exactly what I was looking for. But the other words in the answer would clearly, without a shadow of a doubt, eliminate it. And so it's important that you're digesting every single piece of content that they provide to you on the page. That's your key to success. And when you actually read and understand everything that they write for you, a lot of times the questions are a breeze.
Last one, you said the test makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and it does. And I think it's key to know going in as a candidate that when you get to a question, there's one correct answer. There are 4 wrong ones. And it's that way every single time. The test doesn't play in maybes or close, or you almost had that one. There's one thing that is definitively, without argument, the correct answer. And so understanding that allows you to go into the question with a critical mindset to really eliminate those questions that are incorrect and then select the one that definitively answers the prompt.
Yeah, you have to find the click, right? It's not like, oh, well, that one fits, but this one is a better fit. No, that other one doesn't fit. This one fits. You can feel the click. It should make perfect sense. You see students like just they end up, especially when if I listen to a student reason their way through a question, like one answer choice at a time, I'll see them, sometimes they eliminate the right answer for the wrong reason, which is okay because eliminating all 5 is a good sign. You just said it, Chris. You felt like you were on the right track when you eliminated all 5 answers. I'll see a student eliminate one of the right answers, and then as they get closer to the end of the answer choices, like, especially D and then major problem with E, I'll see students start coming up with all these convoluted rationales for why this answer's got to be the one. And I think you should have been more critical of that answer the first time you read it, which means sometimes you're going to read all 5 and hate all 5 and then have to start over. That's fine. What's not fine is I hated A, I hated B, I hated C. Now I'm starting to lower my standards. I hate D, but well, it has to be. Okay, so it's got to be E. And now you're reading E with this like, well, I'm going to make E fit. You can see them like getting out their hammer to try to hammer the puzzle piece in. And it's like, that's not it. It should click perfectly. And then it's like when they finally get it, you see the light bulb come on and it's just like, oh, yeah, right. Totally. Like how could I possibly have even been making this convoluted case for this other garbage answer now that I see which one like actually does give you the click?
Yeah. And I think it was key for me in when I saw the mistake I made and I got the correct answer from the explanation, watching a video with you and Ben, that I actually sat with it for a second. And I didn't just go, oh, that was it, got it, and move on to the next one in drilling. That I actually thought about what is it that led me to select that one? What are the things I misread? What was the sentence I didn't understand? So that next time I actually had a schema for when I was approaching a question and I was feeling in a similar way.
Beautiful. I have a million different directions I want to go, but I'll stick with your email. You built yourself. Oh, I know what it was I wanted to say. I do want to say this. What we're just talking about, I've never really thought about it this way, but I have known for a long time that it's really important that you never stop doing easy LSAT questions. Like you can't just only drill the hardest ones, because if you only drill the hardest ones, then you end up thinking that the LSAT is hard. And you like get yourself into this mode of, well, the right answer, it's not going to be obvious. I have to finagle, I have to make a convoluted case. And, oh, that one seems like it's right, but it's probably not. It's probably a trap, because this is a level 5 difficulty question or whatever. And students who go down that road, I mean, sometimes they're scoring high 160s or whatever. And they're like, well, so I just need to work on the hardest ones. And I understand why they're doing it. I also am sure that it's a terrible strategy. You need to always be doing mixed practice. You need to always be doing timed sections. Timed sections are great because every section starts off with a whole bunch of really easy questions, right? There could be some harder ones sprinkled in there, and your experience might vary. You might have a hard time with some of them, including the very first question. Who cares? Point is, most of the questions in the first 10 are going to be really easy, and you should be regularly doing those timed sections of real LSATs so that you can realize how damn easy the test actually is. Yeah, there's going to be some harder ones later probably, but the vast majority of them, it's like, well, there's only one even possibly, like there's no theoretical way that these other answers could be right. This answer is obviously right. And you have to like, it is important that you remember that the test makes perfect sense. With the way we say it is the LSAT is easy.
Nathan, you described my study to a T with the demon. And when I said I was not engaging with the lessons properly, I was a drilling only student, especially when it came to logic games early on in my subscriptions on the demon. And I realized later, to use a basketball analogy, more than half of the points in your section are layups. And if
Yeah.
you spend your whole study prep shooting 3-pointers, you might get to a point where you can hit a lot of them, and then you're going to drop easy points. And so I found, especially with logic games, I got to a point with the difficult games when I was doing pretty well. But when I would take time sections or I would do an official, some of the early games or the easy games, I would just miss bunnies, those easy ones, or they would take me so long. I was so not used to filling out proper worlds and doing things in a really quick and methodical way that I would waste time on those easy questions because I didn't practice absolutely crushing those.
Yep.
And I think if you can get to a point in your practice where you just destroy those games,
Totally.
they go quick, you're confident, you know every answer is correct, you have more time and also confidence in yourself when you get to those later games in the section.
Totally. Every student thinks that their problem with that section of games was the hard game 4 or maybe game 3 where they got stuck. And always, that's not your problem. Your problem is you didn't crush the first game hard enough or the second game hard enough. Like, you're not killing the easy stuff. So that's why we say the LSAT, or one of the reasons why we say the LSAT is easy, that you just really need to focus your prep on, okay, I'm going to dominate the easiest parts of this test. And if I dominate the easiest parts of this test, then I'm going to have plenty of time to grind out, some of the harder parts of the test. Okay. So you break out of your funk, you score a 169 on your third official attempt. And you say, I knew it could get me into a lot of great schools, that 169, but I also knew I was capable of scoring higher. So what'd you do then?
Well, I still remember the morning when I opened the LSAC score report and saw I was a 169. I think I expected to feel pretty excited. I mean, that was a 4-point jump from my highest, a 10-point jump from my last score. And I really didn't. It left a bad taste in my mouth. And that was because I'd been taking PTs regularly. I had been taking practice sections regularly. I saw scores that I was capable of. 170 in that low 170s range was not uncommon for me. And so I knew that I should have done better. And I would do better if I took it again. And so I think maybe one day after I got that score report, I was registered for the next LSAT, because I knew that if I had another crack at it with another month of study, that I would definitely do better.
And I'm guessing you didn't do anything differently than in that last month of prep.
I didn't, because I think for a lot of students, I put myself in the same category, and probably for everyone using the Demon, you've got the horsepower to run this race. And I think when it comes to LSAT prep, it's a learnable test. The LSAT is easy. Everybody has what it takes to get a high score. And I knew for me that what I needed to work on was my brain state when I was taking the test, my emotions when I was taking the test, my focus when I was taking the test. And those are all things I can control. I knew how to do the LSAT. I was just getting in my own way with these bad habits and the way I was letting my brain deceive me while taking it. And so in that month before I took the next LSAT, I didn't change a single thing. I was taking practice sections. I was taking practice tests. I didn't have time for those. I was drilling in between. Didn't change a thing. What I focused on when I was doing those was making sure my brain was right, my mindset was right, my emotions were right when I was taking those.
At the end of your email, you said, I eventually came to a point where studying the LSAT was truly fun, and I loved taking sections and practice tests. Many students describe LSAT studying as hell. I never felt that way. But if LSAT studying truly is hell, then it pays to have the Demon on your side. So, thank you for the ad copy. We will steal that, I'm sure. I appreciate it very much. Okay, so all that got you from a 158 diagnostic to a 173 official on your fourth attempt. 15-point improvement. It's a, low 170 score is fantastic. Any thoughts of taking it a fifth time?
It's incredible. The moment when I saw my 173, I was excited this time. But I also heard you and Ben in the back of my head telling me to get greedy on my next one. And so I'm thinking about it. But I also have your same advice in my head of the importance of applying in September and October. And so for me, with the schools I was looking at, a 173 was way over their 75th percentiles on those. The scholarship estimator tells me good information. So I actually sent out applications yesterday and today to a lot of the schools.
Cool.
So I'm hoping that the 173 will open some doors for me. And I can see already just in that 4 points between 169 and 173, the fee waivers have just been raining in my inbox from schools that wouldn't even have given me a look before. And I think that shows how critical getting the LSAT score you're capable of is.
Yeah. If the offers aren't fabulous this cycle, I hope you will consider retaking one more time. It seems to me that LSAT is getting more and more competitive. We have people making like wild improvements. You know, we have people reaching the 170s who started in literally the 130s. And so if you started not in the 130s, not in the 140s, not in the 150s, but in the high 150s, I mean, 158 is a fantastic diagnostic. I have no doubt that you could reach the high 170s eventually. Of course, it all just depends on, you know, what you want to do with your life. And if you're happy with, sounds like you might have some geographical limitations. Are you looking for local stuff?
I'm looking in the Midwest region. I'm
Yeah.
in Illinois now, but there are so many quality schools here, you know, WashU, Northwestern, U Chicago. And so I'm looking to stay here, but you've also instilled in me through the DMen and the podcast, the importance of making sure you're valued by these schools. And the one way that these schools can communicate value to you as a candidate is in scholarships. And so if a school or all the schools I apply to don't give me what I need to feel valued as a candidate, I will definitely go back into the next cycle with an even higher score.
Yeah, you have to be willing to walk away. I mean, that's why, you know, in your case, Chris, it's like two pieces of advice. First piece of advice, you apply broadly. You've already applied early. That's great. You apply broadly, you know, especially if you're getting unsolicited fee waivers from schools. It's like, hey, not going to take that much more work, not going to cost me any money. Why don't I give it a shot? By the way, I don't know if you've asked for any of the LSAC fee waivers. Those are harder to get, that $45 report fee, but they're there. They are out there. You can get those 40. Now, in that case, the school actually has to pay $45 to the law school admission council. But if you think about it from their perspective, I mean, depending on what type of a school you're applying to, it's either a reach school where you're going to pay full tuition. In that case, they can waive they can pay a $45 fee to have the chance of getting $150,000 out of you. So it's a good bet from their perspective. And if a school is like, let's say your LSAT is above their 75th percentile, if you're applying at a school where you think you are a good candidate for significant scholarship money, also what's that $45 to them? I mean, they're going to give you free tuition probably if they admit you. And so they can probably pay $45 additional dollars in a, you know, on top of the $45,000 that they're going to give you for 3 straight years. So why not? Have you gotten any of those?
I applied and didn't get the CAS fee waiver, but every student absolutely should. The bottom line at their school is not going to be hurt by them sending 45 on their half.
Nah.
And it makes a difference as a candidate. Applying broadly lets you negotiate. It allows you to look at different schools. You can place scholarships off each other. With that fee waiver from LSAC and the school fee waivers, there's no limit to the applications you can send.
You know, less the, like, it is true that some schools have policies where it's like, well, we need to, if you have a competing offer, you know, from a peer school that you think you want to show us, we will evaluate that competing offer and then maybe make you another offer. So that's a good reason to get some offers in hand. But another really good reason has nothing to do with playing one school off another. It's just giving you a better walking away point. You know, right now, if you don't get any good offers, your walking away point is still not bad because your walking away point is simply, I'll apply again next cycle, maybe with a better LSAT. So I know that things are going to work out in my favor. If you're willing to do that, fantastic. But if you have to go this cycle, then you definitely should apply really broadly, because you want to be able to walk away from a school that just gives you an offer that's not good enough. You know, if you know that that school gives other people more money than that, and if you have a really nice offer from some other school, then it's not about like, hey, you have to match this offer. It's just like, I'm taking that offer. And the second you are willing to take that offer, then they might come back with more money, actually. It's not even like you're negotiating. You're just saying, oh, that's not as good of a deal. I'm going over here.
Yeah, and one of the first episodes I remember listening to on your podcast was when you interviewed law school transparency.
Yeah.
And to me, that completely changed the way I was looking at schools, from being really ranking and prestige focused to actually looking at what are the outcomes for me as a student from graduating from that program. And I think doing that, researching the schools at that level, makes full rides at regional schools or the large publics in the state so much more attractive. And so I'd encourage students, as they're applying broadly, to not just look at the Ivies and not look at your top 14, but look at what are the career outcomes at some of those larger schools in your state. And I think you'll be surprised.
Oh, yeah. You realize that they put people into big law, federal clerkships, any whatever public interest stuff you're interested in, all kinds of public service stuff. It's like, yeah, they're real law schools. They're not fake. Like, just because it's not Harvard doesn't mean it's not a law school that can build a career path for you. And when the price is right, then it just makes the whole endeavor so much less, scary. Excellent, Chris. Thank you so much. You want to tell the listeners a little bit about you and what you do, where you are, and what you're working on?
Yeah, so I currently work at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. I work running 2 academic programs, teaching classes, and I'm also a Title IX investigator here, investigating incidents of sexual misconduct. And for me, that's really where my interest in law, with that intersection in education, really came to the fore. And so I found it's something I'm good at. It's something I really enjoy, and pushed me to look at law schools. And the LSAT demon taught me to bet on myself and my LSAT prep, take it until I get the score that I'm capable of. And also, in applying to schools now, that's the same way I'm looking at it. So I have a diverse portfolio of schools I'm looking at: regionals, public, high ranked, some mid-ranked schools, because I'm confident that if I go to those programs, that I can bet on myself again and get some of those higher career outcomes at those schools that I'm capable of achieving.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on the show. I hope you'll keep in touch. Find me on LinkedIn or whatever, Chris. I definitely want to follow your career. Thanks again. Just, I want to thank you as a student. I want to thank you for trusting us with your LSAT prep. We know how important this is. We think we can help you a lot if you follow our advice. It's very gratifying when people, actually do the things that we think are best practices for the LSAT, but ultimately you're the one who put in all that work. You did roughly how many practice tests do you think?
I don't even think I could tell you, to be honest. It had to be 30 or 40.
Yeah, dozens anyway, and 4 official tests. And that must have been at least 6 months, 9 months of your life. You paid us some money for your LSAT prep, which we appreciate. Thank you for. Hopefully it turned out to be a really good investment, but you'll have to let me know when the scholarship offers start coming in.
Absolutely. And you won't remember this, Nathan, but one of the first free classes I came to, I remember typing in chat that if the LSAT demon got me a score over 170, that I would have to buy some merch to rep the program. And as of 2 days ago, I hit it. So I'm going to go to your merch store and see what I can find, because I truly believe in what you did. And I want to thank you and the demon.
That's awesome.
Well, money well spent. Incredible program and great results for me.
That's awesome. Thanks, Chris.
We have an email here from Anonymous.
In one of the daily episodes, Nathan references having, quote, a bit of swagger when it comes to the LSAT. Could you please expand on that? I think I'm somewhat submissive heading into the test, which is hurting my chances of performing to the best of my abilities. Coupled with testing anxiety, it's not a dyad pushing towards crushing the LSAT, which is the goal. How can I achieve that cognitive shift wherein I dominate the LSAT as opposed to the other way around? Thanks and regards. Dyad. Something that consists of 2 elements or parts, like the mother-child dyad.
Coupled with testing anxiety, it's not a dyad pushing towards crushing the LSAT.
I think being submissive.
Hmm.
So being submissive toward the test, coupled with testing anxiety,
Oh,
creates
so that dyad.
the dyad.
Yeah, got it. Those two things. Yeah, they're not pushing toward crushing the LSAT. That's true.
Yeah. I think the most important way that you can put the LSAT in its place is by getting actually good at it. If you get good at the test, then you're gonna have swagger when you sit down to do the test. Like you'll just you'll be confident in your ability to figure it out. And that's the most important thing I think that we can teach is, practice figuring it out. Here's how you figure it out. When you drill, you're going to figure it out most of the time, right? The demon is trying to give you questions that let you figure it out 80% of the time. If you get too many of them right, then the demon starts feeding you harder questions so that you still sometimes struggle. That's how you improve. But you're learning how to just solve the questions and feel good about your answers. And when you get to that point where you realize, oh, I can get them right if I just take my time, then I think you're naturally going to start to have that swagger.
Yeah, I think it helps to have realistic beliefs about the test. This is essentially, I think, what you're saying, Nathan, but realize that the test makes sense, that there are words on the page that have meaning, and they're not strange, they're not esoteric, they are common sense, rational meanings, and you can decipher them if you just focus on each sentence one at a time, pay attention to what's being said, and read the question, understand what they're asking of you, and then look for an answer that best answers that question. The test makes sense. We're not saying that as a gimmick. It's a test of logic and reasoning, and they've made it very logical, and you can understand it, and it can make sense on an intuitive way, not just some formal logic way. So if you realize that the test can make sense, it's a thing that you can master. When you say you are somewhat submissive heading into it, there's some hesitation or fear, but there's no reason you can't understand everything on this test, or at least 98% of it. And that's enough to get a very, very high LSAT score. Sure, there may be some random sentence that's just like, bleh, like, what is that? That doesn't make sense. But you can understand all of it.
Yeah, you have to decide that the LSAT is easy. I think drilling is a really good way to do that because the drilling tool should just get you getting them right regularly. And timed sections are great for that too, or untimed sections for that matter. But doing a section, should help you understand how easy the test is, because the first few questions on every test, if you take your time with them, are very easy. There's going to be 4 terrible answers, 1 perfect answer. Those questions are really, really easy. They make sense on the page. You can figure them out with no prior prep. And so if you decide that the LSAT is mostly like that, which it is if you approach it the right way, then you start to look forward to it. You start to enjoy it. It turns it into a game for you.
So knowing for a fact, not just as a gimmick, but is it in fact true that the test is easy, that there are words on the page that you can make sense of and therefore own them, not be submissive to them, but also realize that right now, today, you don't have to finish. Right? You can own, master, dominate, whatever you want, the first 5 questions or the first 10 questions. Do that and you're winning. That's all we care about. And tomorrow you can dominate the first 11.
Intentionally burn the first 20 seconds at the start of a timed section just to see what it feels like.
Yep.
That's what somebody with swagger would do, is to start the timer, but then not start. Because instead they wanted to take a couple deep breaths to center themselves. before calmly, carefully answering the first question right. And then the second one. And then just confidently chewing through it. The other part, you really get to see the swagger on predicting answers and dismissing wrong answers. When you really understand what you're doing on LSAT logical reasoning or reading comprehension, you're going to be predicting the answer to like half of those questions, at least roughly. You're going to have an idea what you're looking for. And knowing what you're looking for before they even ask you the question makes, that is swagger, and it's self-reinforcing. The more you do that, the better you're going to feel about your approach to the test. And then it also comes with dismissing wrong answer choices after 2 words, where you just read the beginning of that and you're like, I know what I'm looking for. This is not close to what I'm looking for. This is gone. And the more you can do that quickly, the more you're going to develop that confidence to be the boss of the test.
Absolutely. I want to add one more thing, and that is to say that you're already good enough. Now, this is going to sound strange because you might have a low LSAT score, but you're already good enough in the sense that you can already answer and totally understand some questions. So again, let go of this thing of, I've got to be at this place now. No, you don't. You can dominate 3 questions, 5 questions, 8 questions. I don't know what you can dominate today, but you can. You're already good enough at those. Start doing that so you get a sense of what it feels like to own the questions you can own. And then you'll just continue on that road.
Yeah. Build from where you are today.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. The ones that you can get right. You see how those make perfect sense on the page? There's words there that you can figure out that make perfect sense. Okay, you did it there. You can also do it on all these other questions.
Yep.
You just have to be careful with it. You just have to take your time with it.
Today, we're going to read a logical reasoning question from Test 73, Section 4. It's going to be question 15. I'm going to read it, and Nathan is going to tell us what he's thinking as we read it. Heinz emerald dragonflies are an endangered species that live in wetlands.
That's one that I wouldn't probably need to even pause on. I mean, I don't know anything about the emerald dragonfly, but I'm learning about a endangered species that lives in a wetland called the Heinz emerald dragonfly. Fine, what about it?
The larvae of these dragonflies can survive only in water where they are subject to predation by several species, including red devil crayfish.
Okay, so I noticed that including there. The red devil crayfish sounds like a, big bad monster for this dragonfly, especially for the dragonfly larva.
Mm-hmm.
But it did say that there are several species preying on it in the water. So It's not necessarily just the crayfish, but the crayfish are part of what's, but they have to do it, right? Because the larvae can survive only in the water. So there's not an out of the water option for these dragonflies.
Okay. Surprisingly, the dragonfly populations are more likely to remain healthy in areas where red devil crayfish are present than in areas without red devil crayfish.
So I kind of would have paused at the surprisingly, like that's author's opinion, the author is telling you that this is surprising. Okay, so what is it that's so surprising? Well, they do better in areas with the crayfish than without.
Mm-hmm.
But the crayfish are a predator. First thing that I think is real simple, which is if there's no water at all, then there's probably not going to be any red devil crayfish.
Sure.
And I already know that the larvae couldn't possibly survive.
Yep.
So maybe that's what's going on. Like areas where there's more water, there's the crayfish are in the water and they need to be in the water. So something as simple as that.
I mean, those are the facts that they gave us, right? They specifically said can survive only in the water. So if crayfish need water too, then they're not going to be where it's dry. So yeah, it sucks to be with the crayfish, but it'd suck even worse to be anywhere else.
Yeah. The next thing that I might think is, what if the red devil crayfish is such a badass that it scares away all other predators? So maybe, they still get preyed on by the red devil, but they don't get preyed on by the 8 other species that would be preying on them. And maybe some of those other species are more efficient predators.
Yeah. Or just at least less predation, because it does say they are subject to predation by several species, right? So we know something's going on there.
Maybe the red devil gets full and doesn't keep preying on you. And if the other species are around, they would keep preying on you. Maybe the red devil, if it scares off other predators, is good.
Yeah, it's still eating you, but not as much as you would have been eaten.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay. The question says, which one of the following, if true, most helps to explain the surprising fact?
Got to be clear here what the paradox is. Paradox is red devil crayfish eat your babies. Nonetheless, you do better when the red devil crayfish is around.
Yep.
Okay.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
A. Red devil crayfish dig chambers that remain filled with water even when the surrounding wetlands dry up.
Never would have predicted it in a million years. Although I guess my prediction about water was kind of on target, wasn't it? It wasn't exactly the same because I didn't have the red devil crayfish digging chambers. But I mean, if that's true, I know that water is required in order for your larvae to survive. And if the red devil crayfish are able to help you have water, I mean, you would prefer some of your babies to survive than none of your babies to survive.
Yeah.
So if A is true, then yeah, I can see how the crayfish would actually be good for you in a drought.
Yeah. So they're doing something harmful to you, but they're also doing something helpful for you. On balance, it may be better than nothing. Okay. B. Red devil crayfish present no threat to adult Heinz emerald dragonflies.
Doesn't explain why. I mean, I already know that they do eat their babies.
And so they don't hurt the adults. Nice. But they kill the babies. So why is it okay or good for them to be around?
Right. See, it seems like your species would still be doing better without them. Just saying, well, they don't eat the older ones. They only eat the babies. Yeah. Okay. That's not explaining what the surprising fact was.
Sure. C. The varied diet of the red devil crayfish does not include any animal species that prey on dragonfly larvae.
So the opposite of that would have been one of my predictions. If red devil crayfish do prey on other predators, then that helps to explain the paradox. C says that does not happen. So it kind of defends the paradox from explanation.
Makes it worse. Yeah. Like, okay. D. Red devil crayfish are found in many more locations than Heinz emerald dragonflies are.
So?
They're more abundant. Why do they help me though?
Yeah. Sometimes students will go, but why not D though? Why doesn't D explain it?
Yeah.
And my response, it kind of has to be, well, why do you think D does explain the paradox?
Yeah.
Because, there's millions of infinite statements that could be made, and only some of them are going to explain the paradox. You saying, why doesn't it explain the paradox? Okay, well, you got to make your case for why it does. And with D, something like that, it's just like, huh? They're around in more places? What?
Yep. E. Populations of red devil crayfish in a wetland do not drop significantly if the local population of Heinz emerald dragonflies dies out.
So they don't need so the crayfish don't need the dragonflies.
Nope, they can survive without them.
How does that explain why the dragonflies do better with the crayfish around?
Again, how are they helpful? Yeah, it doesn't say. I
don't see how they're helpful at all. Yeah. So got to be A. I mean, I hadn't thought about the crayfish digging, they're excavating these little pools, but if they do, and that helps you have water when the surrounding wetlands have dried up, then yeah, they could be good for you, even if they are still going to eat some of your babies.
I'm just looking at the percentage of people who pick different answers. It looks like A is the most commonly chosen answer, which is great. That's correct. B is a fairly common chose answer. Any guess why?
Red devil crayfish present no threat to adult Heinz emerald dragonflies. I mean, it's a compliment toward the red devil crayfish You know, it's
Yeah.
like it's almost like it's introducing a reasonable doubt, sort of. It's like Red Devil Crayfish is on trial for baby murder. Right?
They don't hurt adults. They don't hurt
And
it.
well, this is the defense is presenting this like, well, see, look, they're really good they volunteer at the local soup kitchen and they're super nice to the old folks that come there and get, but it's like, that's just not explaining why. So I don't know. I guess, yeah, it's a good thing about the Red Devil Crayfish. And it explains how the Red Devil Crayfish is not terrible all the time to all of these emerald dragonflies. It just doesn't negate the fact that they do actually eat the larvae. So
It says nothing about the larvae, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
So, okay. Interesting. Cool.
we have an email here from Philip.
Hi, Nathan and Ben. 2 more schools with issues with their 509s are Columbia and Cardozo. Columbia not only says it gives scholarships to 102% of its students, it also boasts a transfer into Columbia from Columbia University. Cardozo boasts 2 transfers into Cardozo from Cardozo School of Law. I thought you might find it interesting. Best, Philip.
Yeah, Columbia is one of those schools. They're giving, they have 1,263 students and 1,287 of them are receiving scholarships. There's 24 no-show scholarships. Tony Soprano arranged those. That's just a weird error of.
That's an error, but it's to the extent that it still reflects that close to or maybe 100% of students are getting scholarships. Just shows that proves if it's true that 100% of students are getting scholarships, then that proves the list price is fake.
Yeah. Well, their list price is $73,584 with annual fees of $2,504. So we're knocking on the door of 80 grand at Columbia.
What percentage of the class has to pay the full rate for the rate to become a real number?
Yeah, like 25%.
At least, maybe more than half. Like you have to say most people pay this price for the price, I think, to be real.
Most.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to argue with that. Okay.
If most people don't, I think it would offend your sensibilities, right?
Yeah.
If you went to get a car and it was like, yeah, most people don't pay that, you'd be like, okay, well, I don't want to pay that.
Yeah, they did have a transfer in at Columbia. They report a transfer in from Columbia.
Okay.
Strange. How could that be possibly real?
Don't know.
Transferred in from another graduate program at Columbia?
Maybe.
Doesn't say transferred in from a JD program. I mean, that's kind of assumed, but I don't know. That's weird. The 509s are not perfect. We are learning that. Yeah. You want to look at Cardozo's as well? I guess we could. 52 in the country.
Yep.
Yeshiva scholarships. Oh, they're not giving more than 100% scholarships. What are they doing? Oh, I just have transfers from Cardozo. Is that on the current one that we're showing? Yep, they do. Weird. Who knows? I mean, that's probably just somebody transferring from one school to the other.
Still, here's another school that's giving 95% of its students scholarships. I'm going to say that's my new rule. If most people aren't paying the price, then it's not an actual number.
So it needs to be, well, then no school is charging a real price. Because I mean, at pretty much every school, isn't every school giving more than 50%?
I would assume so, but that would be an interesting award, right? If any school is charging more than 50% of their class, the actual price that they list on their website, wow, kudos to them.
I'm looking at Yale. Nope. At Yale, 73% of the school is getting grants. Now, those don't include so many of the full tuition, right? But they are still getting, I mean, this could be one of those weird artifacts of, even if you're getting a $250 scholarship from your sorority, it counts. If that's what we're looking at here. Hey, Harvard University reports 45% of their school is getting a grant.
Wow. Okay.
So Harvard's price, which is $67,720, is real.
That's interesting. So if that's how much Harvard costs and it's a real price, that means pretty much all other schools should be lower than that. And they're not, which is weird.
Well, some
So
people
many
aren't going to
schools
pick
are
up
right
and
up
move
there.
across country, right?
Yeah, but all I'm saying is Harvard's one of the best schools in the world, right? So that
Yeah.
should be the highest priced item or close to it. And yet so many schools that have nowhere close to the ranking of Harvard charge pretty close in price.
Yale and Stanford both report 75%-ish scholarships, and same with Chicago. So it's kind of looking like Harvard is the only one that charges a real price. Ooh, Penn is close, 59% grants. So 41% at Penn paying the real price.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, you got to give like kind of a hat tip to these schools that are at least some like sort of reasonable.
Yeah.
NYU, 45% paying full price.
Okay.
UVA, 38. Berkeley, 30. The farther you fall in the rankings, the less real the price is. I mean, that's going to be.
And the price stays close to Harvard. So they're basically the schools are reflecting reality. They're saying we can't charge Harvard prices for a sub-Harvard school. So what we're going to do is put that on our website, but then offer more discounts.
That's exactly what this is. Yes, this is Harvard is charging a real price by Ben's 50% or more measure. Harvard can actually justify charging that price, and these other schools are acknowledging that they can't. In order to compete, they're giving grants to attract you to their non-Harvard school.
They could lower their price and reflect reality, but instead, they're just going to charge Harvard prices and then discount.
Yep.
Okay.
Email daily@lsatdemon.com if you'd like to ask us a question or share some LSAT or law school admissions news. Thanks for listening.